My name is Lindiwe Sabanda. I'm working with a regional policy network that is coordinated from South Africa, but working in 13 Southern African countries. We cover both SADC, which is a regional economic community, and COMESA, which is the common market for East and Southern Africa. And by tomorrow, we'll have a node in the DRC, and by the end of this year, a node in Kenya and Uganda. I'll explain what this is about. Prabhu was picking on me and saying, how much time do you spend at home? So I say to him, home is where the heart is. When you're an advocate, you have to be visible. Otherwise, you don't get to participate in the agenda. So I'll try and share with you what Africa is doing. And I hope by the end of this, I'll convince the CCAF's players that Africa is a good destination for business for CCAFs. The statistics have been covered, so I will not spend much time. There couldn't have been a better time for the interface between climate change, food security, and agriculture. We've just come out of Copenhagen, and there was no deal because agriculture was not part of the deal. But it's not all lost because Africa remains resolute that we are going to fight for agriculture to be part of the deal. I'll explain more about that. Why Africa? Why are we focusing on Africa? Why is Africa a special case? Statistics have been given, but I think what is worrying to everybody is the high poverty levels and the scary fact that this will worsen with the impact of climate change. There is poor economic and social infrastructure, and the conflicts are not helping, and most of them are driven by shortage of resources or conflict over natural resources. We've already seen the statistics in terms of what's likely to happen and what is already happening and what Africa needs to do. But what is really scary is the productivity levels. I've given the example of crops. I apologize to my ILRI colleagues, but this is a slide I got from COMESA to show that when you compare to global statistics, Africa is really calling for more technologies to intensify productivity. And I know that this has caused a lot of angry debates because everybody says, why intensify? But if you look at the need and the demand, there is no way, but the issue is sustainable increased productivity. That's the key word. Now, what is Africa doing to meet the increased demand? At the African Union level, there is already CAADP. CAADP is now 7 years, and the big cry was, what is this comprehensive African agricultural development plan? It's all talk, but there's no action. We are happy to say that we are seeing a lot of actions. There are 19 African countries that have signed or developed their national investment plans for agriculture. Have the CGs been participating in those? Does CCAFs have space in that? In addition to just committing to investing 10% of their national budgets to agriculture, African governments are compelling all actors within government, private sector, civil society to make sure that the sector grows by at least 6% per annum. Now, what are the pillars that drive CAADP? Pillar 1 is home for what we are talking about today, extending the area under sustainable land management and reliable water control and use systems. Pillar 2 is about improved rural infrastructure and markets. Pillar 3, key to today, food security, increasing availability and nutrition, ensuring nutrition security. And 4 is about research, making sure that we generate relevant technologies that will lead to improved productivity. Now, Africa is ready for business. The current chairman of the African Union, during the inauguration this year, made a bold statement. He's already shown through successes in his own country, in Malawi, that Malawi shall never go begging for food again. And for the past 4 years, Malawi, which used to import food to feed about 5 million people every year, is now exporting to feed the region. And this is through improved policies and technologies. They've moved in terms of hybrid seed adoption rates from as low as 5% to 70%. During the inauguration, His Excellency Bingu Mutharika made a bold statement. He said, in 5 years, no African child will die of hunger and malnutrition. Now, we've heard the statistics that if we continue as business as usual, there will be 20% more malnourished children. And I'm sure the bulk of that will be in Africa. So what is it that we need to do? CADAP has committed to addressing the challenges both at local, regional, and global levels. And let's see what this is bringing. They've committed to enhancing biodiversity through sustainable agriculture and agroforestry, safeguarding the productivity of farms through sustainable land and water management, using the same approaches for adaptation, and linking mitigation strategies. Now, the challenge we have in Africa is that there's always many voices and many spokespersons for the African community. But the Africans are now talking for themselves. Adaptation is happening now, but mitigation has room in Africa, and they want to be active players there. We launched in Africa, in Poznan, during COP14, the Africa Biocarbon Initiative. That was a bold statement by Africa to say they want to be part of the mitigation business because they are already adapting to climate change. They are calling for more technologies, but in mitigation, they also want to be there. This is an initiative that has been endorsed. It was initiated by COMESA. It went to SADC, East African Community, right up to the African Union level. And to me, that's a bold statement by Africans that they are ready to act collectively now, but what they are calling for is support in generating evidence to make their voice and policies be supported by evidence. Now, what is it in the Africa Biocarbon Initiative? The main thing is to reduce climate change impact and enhance community resilience, enhance access to rural energy and empower rural populations, and increase productivity and food security. Now, all those are anchored on adaptation and mitigation, and the call is for increased investments for research that will align the policies in Africa. Now, what is Africa's position in terms of the key issues? Africa supports REDD, the reduced emission for deforestation and forest degradation. Africa is for AFOLU. There's a lot of acronyms, but I've put them all in full. Agriculture, forest, and other sustainable land uses, and LULUCF. Now, all this becomes confusing because the agenda in terms of these global negotiations has been driven by environmentalists, and it's been housed in the Ministry of Environment. When we now bring the agenda where agriculture has to be in the center because the aim is an Africa that's food secure, there's a lot of challenges. Can you imagine bringing in a group of newcomers who then have to create space, and they don't have the evidence to convince the global community where all the deals are made that agriculture, food security are key in any global climate agenda. Now, on the issue of adaptation, really the call for resources and technologies cannot be any higher. African governments are already involved in developing their own NAPAs, and I will use an extract from work that has been done by Azareka to share with you some of the issues that are appearing in the country adaptation programs, and you can see the void for evidence, for advanced science to inform these processes. It's not happening. On the issue of mitigation, 2 months, as of last month, 13 African countries had prepared their NAMAs. But what is scary in that is in 4 of the African countries, 4 of the 13, there is no mention of agriculture at all. And one of those countries is the one that's going to be hosting COP17. So there's need for advocacy, there's need for knowledge sharing, there's need for the science community to accompany the African agenda if we are going to make any impact, because without the evidence to inform policies, it will be business as usual. Country X, I'm not allowed as an advocate to mention the names of countries, have highlighted in their NIPAs the 7 points I have there. You can glance through and see. Nothing out of the ordinary. This is being driven by the National Agricultural Research Systems, and from my knowledge, there's been very little interface or input from advanced science, from the CG system, from people who can help develop those NAPAs, and there's a glaring void and call for participation in those processes. Second country, why? Replacement of household goat heads with sheep heads to reduce pressure on fragile rangelands. Carlos. I have not made that up. The names of the countries are available. The study was done by Azareka, and Jerry is here. Jerry Nelson is aware of the studies. Now, I've articulated that Africa is keen on RED+, and we welcome the RED++ because we believe it's in sync with the AFOLU call, which calls for agriculture, forestry, and sustainable land use. Because in African agriculture, the difference or the divide between forests and agriculture is very thin. So we believe the two should be integrated. Status of African farmers. The third leg of the what is Africa doing is putting farmers first. A current farmer is using a hand hoe. Is this the same farmer we are planning for 20, 30 years from now? By putting farming first, we really need to look at all the other issues that will help us improve productivity in a sustainable way, and I've highlighted some of the issues there. I'll zero in on the priority for research imperatives. We need to meet the challenges of the future. We need to conduct research on food systems and take a holistic approach because the silo approach will not serve us anymore. We need to establish the private-public partnerships that promote farmer-centered research. And in terms of safeguarding the natural resources, for a long time there's been no incentive, but there couldn't be a better time now in this interface between agriculture, food security, and climate change. And we need to create the incentives. We have to find innovative ways to reward the farmers who do good. Now, who are the actors we are talking about? The global research partnerships. We've got the CG. We hope that the Earth System Science Partnership under CCAFS will be well integrated so that the science community, where we've seen the divide between the agricultural scientists, the climate scientists, and other scientists, will be brought under one fold. And similar partnerships in the South will be developed so that there's joint publications, and this is what we call capacity building, working collectively globally to solve the issues. In terms of African researchers, Africa is now organized. Under FARA, we have more or less the regional research organizations that can interface with the international community. Private sector, this morning we heard that they're an elusive wolf to catch, but we believe that through the civil society work that Africa has been doing, they are holding the multilaterals to account. And there's an opportunity for going green and rewarding the communities and getting community participation. Farmers are now well organized under regional blocks. We have SACAO in Southern Africa. We have East African Farmers Association. We have the West African farmers also organized. And there's opportunities to engage globally with the farming communities. And then, of course, when all the evidence has been developed, you need the advocacy platforms. You need the media. You need the regional networks. You need the policy networks. What are the key activities? Let's not work in silos. Let's look at all the food systems activities holistically, because at farmer level, it was mentioned this morning that at the end of the day, it's not just the production that the farmer is engaged in, it's the whole activities that will result in the outcomes we are looking for, which is food security. So there's need for us to take a holistic approach in the climate change interface with food security. Africa is an oral culture, but we talk less within our African communities and we push written paper. And I think there's need under CCAFS, under the CG system within the consortium, to develop tools for engaging effectively with the African stakeholders across the board. It's happening at our own levels. We are reading less. One page flies more than a 20-page document. So can we be innovative and cultivate those multi-stakeholder platforms where issues for debate are backed up by evidence from research, and then policymakers participate in those platforms and they can rub shoulders with the evidence. Partnerships, I cannot overemphasize the need for partnerships. We need partnerships in policy analysis. Africa is very thin in terms of skills for policy analysis. And we cannot go on like that. There is need for retooling of African scientists so that they can move from just doing economic analysis to policy options that will inform policymakers. We need to provide communication and outreach and movement building. We saw with the movement that we built for COP15 that we were able to drive the no agriculture, no deal globally. And this was evident throughout COP15. There is a talk of new money that is coming. And I think the other threat to civil society, or the worry, is that how will this be distributed? We hope that as we look at the research topics under CCAFs, we'll also look at the social aspects of how do we make sure that that money reaches the poor and contributes to poverty reduction. Copenhagen, there were lots of activities. There was visibility of Africans. And I believe we made an impact because Africa was talking with one voice. Back to our African farmer, the woman. What is their dream? A secure livelihood. But is this the same farmer for the future? By 2050, most of us here, I'm not sure. But this is the farmer we are planning for. Are we reaching out to them? And are we making sure that the plans that we are putting in place are inculcated in our education system, in our social networking system? What are the lessons for Barcelona? I hope CCAFs will be able to align their research agenda with the global climate calendar. We lost a lot of mileage last year because part of the big bulls had not sorted out their houses. They were not in order in terms of a climate policy for the American government. But we hope that as CCAFs, we will make sure that the evidence we generate will be of use in informing COP16 so that we are ready to accompany the delegations. We provide research support and backup so that they are able to argue their positions during the negotiations. That has been the weakest point in the African negotiations. The research from particularly agriculture and food security is not filtering through into the negotiation platforms. What needs to be done? Clearly, agriculture and food security should be part of the actions for implementing the Copenhagen Accord. This is not a binding accord, but more and more countries are signing on. So we need to make sure that the evidence we have is informing the advocacy processes. We need to accompany the NAMAs and the NAPAs at country level and at regional level to make sure that we are relevant and that we are not coming up with the research outputs when countries have concluded their NAMAs, their NAPAs, and their CADAP programs, both at national and regional level. I think the main message we need to carry out collectively, and I'm happy with CCAFs coming on board, that the CG, hopefully under Mega Program 7, will talk collectively and will be able to push the no agriculture, no deal to COP16 and make sure that we get a deal that is good for all of us. Thank you.